Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, theinkedreader. Today I am filming what I've watched recently. I tend to do these quarterly, so every time the season change, I look back at what I've watched last season and yeah, try to review it briefly. I divide these in categories and I put them from the least enjoyable watch to the most enjoyable watch. These doesn't necessarily or not always reflect quality in my opinion. However, I think sometimes it does reflect what I think has been quality-wise, the best thing. But if it doesn't reflect that, I will let you know. Otherwise, this list is from what I found the least enjoyable and the least well done, in my personal opinion, to what I believe has been like the most enjoyable thing or the most high in terms of quality. So yeah, I am filming these with my windows open because it's pretty warm upstairs, so I don't want to die and melt. So yeah, any noise that the camera is picking up from outside, I apologize in advance. So I'm gonna start with the categories where I just watched one thing of. There is no ranking because I don't have anything else to rank apart from one thing. So true crime, the only thing I watched was the murders, and this is this rather short true crime documentary, of course, about the accidental death of a young girl that was out with her friends, and the driver who was a murderer, so part of his kind of famous in the area where they lived in USA and very rich family. He was the driver of this boat when they had an accident because he was drunk, and so one of them end up dead, and then you follow kind of him and what happens to him. And now I don't want to spoil in case you have not heard, but funny enough, I had read an article on Sky News about some of the things that happened later on, and then I became curious about these and Netflix suggested it when I was like looking for something new to watch. So yeah, I ended up watching these. It was just a family horrible drama happening, and it was actually quite interesting to see how this family worked, how some of the members of this family shared qualities that are like, definitely dark triads, around psychopathy and narcissism and all of those things. So it was a curious one, and for someone like me who loves true crime, it was a good one. Not mind-blowing, not the best thing ever. And I also have a critique that since then things have progressed, but we don't have an update. So Netflix, you should really conclude this series because it's left unfinished, but the story has now again continued on, and I read some articles on it, so I think it does need a bit of like one episode more or something to wrap things up. But overall, it was interesting for what it was. The other category, which I watched just one thing unfortunately, is anime, and I just watched the season 2 of Demon Slayer. This is like 7 episodes I believe, and then season 3 has 11 episodes on Netflix. I need to watch season 3, so I just watched season 2 in spring, and I love Demon Slayer, the anime. I found the animations so stellar, like so beautiful to watch, and apart from the animations which are 10 out of 10, I really also enjoy these characters and how pure our main protagonist is. Now, Demon Slayer is the story of this boy who one day goes out for a trip to gather some supplies for his family that live kind of isolated in the woods. So he's away for a few days, I believe, and when he comes back, he finds the whole family murdered by demons. Now, these demons are very, very similar to what we call vampires. However, they have different levels, and although they do work like, by eating humans and blood and just not being able to be out in the sun, they also have unique characteristics. So they're like, each one of them is monstrous in its own way, has its own specific powers, and I really like just seeing what, they come up with, what enemy is and what is the power and how long it's going to take to defeat it. The fighting scenes are very intense, and I like this because it really takes its time to defeat an enemy. It's very complex, and you need to use your brain and powers in order to defeat this enemy. And Tanjiro, our main protagonist, he is just so precious to me. I really, really like the struggle he's going through and how he's overcoming his self-doubts and self-deprecation because of what happened, and the constant challenge that he has, yes, toward his enemies and to reach his goals, but also to conquer his own fears and demons. pun intended, from the past. And there are some side characters that are quite funny. So this really has everything that I can wish for, and I was devastated in the end. And yeah, I can't wait to continue on.
A few moments later.
No, I'm done. I am done. I didn't watch only one anime. I watched 2 of them. And I can't decide which one is the best. I can't. I'm not gonna attempt to. So the other number 1 from Demon Slayer is Chainsaw Man. I did get around to watch the first season of Chainsaw Man. The only really critique I have is it was too short. I think it didn't give enough time for people who have not read the manga to truly appreciate how good Chainsaw Man is. But this is done by Studio Mappa, you know, the same studio that did Attack on Titan, which is one of my favorite things ever in the whole world. So I knew it was gonna be amazing art style, perfect action scenes, and, you know, combined with the atmosphere of Chainsaw Man that was beautifully translated, you know, from the manga to the anime, it was gonna be like a 10 out of 10. I adored it. Following me, you know, I'm a huge fan of Chainsaw Man. I really enjoyed having the kind of refresher of the story because I had not read a volume in a year. Not a year, 6 months maybe, when I finished Chainsaw Man, the last volume, and I cannot wait for to have all the seasons out to be able to follow the whole story. It really is one of those that, because it's so action packed and so many demons and so many like action sequence in the manga, I can see why this translates so well in anime, and it's been done beautifully. And Chainsaw is the story of Denji. He is been living on his own, abandoned as a child, and he only has his pet demon dog Pochita as a friend, and he's really trying to kind of, you know, get some food in his mouth and earn a bit of money to survive by doing odd jobs for a local mafia. And one time though, he's betrayed by the same people that have given him a job, and Pochita makes a sacrifice, this demon makes a sacrifice to keep Denji alive and makes a contract with him. And in this world, humans can make contracts with devil in exchange for powers, but usually they will have to give back something very important. And Denji, when he's transformed now by having this pact with Pochita, he is hired by this kind of, it's like the demon police, with kind of like Men in Black for demons. If it makes sense. So they find and fight demons. And yeah, Chainsaw is a very peculiar one. Denji is a bit of a pervert and it's very naive, but when you understand how he grew up, you can also understand that there is actually a simple depth to Denji as a human being that really caught my attention. And it's a theme in Chainsaw Man. Is, you know, how naive he is, but also like how it's okay to have simple dreams in life, how that doesn't make them less powerful or worthy of having, that I really appreciate. And then reality TV shows, again, I just watched one. I really don't watch reality TV apart from idol competitions. So these are competitions, reality TV shows where usually young men or women that are quite talented in singing, dancing, they go on these competitions to form new idol groups, new K-pop groups. And I love Boys Planet, I think that's what it's called. Has been now, like, I watched it a bunch of weeks ago since it finished, but I really like watching someone talented making to the end and having success. And when the final group was put together, all my top picks were in it, and it's the first time actually where I watched a reality TV show that was a competition and all my favorite guys won and made it into the final team. This is the first time, it's never happened before, where I was just so satisfied. And there are a couple of like neutral places where I didn't care much. Yes, maybe upon reflection I would have wished that some of the guys that were excluded, I think they deserved it more than, you know, my neutral choices and the guys that got it. But it was just a couple of places. All my top, I believe I had 4 of them that I really wanted to make it, and they did. So you know what, this was entertaining, full of talent. It is pretty, it follows like a standard episodes structure. If you've watched any of the other, this is not different. And it's something that, unless, you know, people are not really talented and so it's enjoyable to watch them, it would kind of get boring for me, but it didn't, because again of how talented these boys were. Then I will quickly go through stand-up comedies, just because there is not much I can say about stand-up comedies in terms of there is no synopsis or anything or a plot, but I put them in order because I did watch 3 of them. I'm gonna insert here the picture of the show. It's all on Netflix. So last place I put the one I watched by Joe Coy. I'd watched some of his shorts, some snippets of his show before on YouTube Shorts. However, his comedy is something that I can like take in small doses, but I don't love it like a whole show. There's just like a limited amount of sexual joke I can take, and this is just my personal preference, and I think he really uses like a lot of sexual jokes where after a while they become a bit tedious for me, and I didn't find myself like laughing a lot or finding the episodes he was recounting that funny, because many of them they had a sexual innuendo. Second place would be Fluffy, this comedy by Iglesias, and I found this that although wasn't that funny for me, like I didn't like ugly laugh, or like I had some, you know, smiles here and there, and it was like a good time watching it, but definitely not my favorite one. And I would probably watch like another show by him, but I'm not in any rush to do so. I did find his devotion to people that work for him, with him, and for his fans incredibly touching, and I really liked how, you know, humble he was and how grateful he was. So the messages that he gives, and how again he wants to say thank you, and he mentioned people working for him and his words that he had about them, that was remarkable, and I'd not seen done that well in a long while. So yeah, I really appreciate that aspect of it. But the number one comedy that I absolutely loved it, and I would watch it again, and when I can watch again and again a comedy show, it means that I really enjoy it. It's Not Normal, and I'm not gonna butcher his name, but I had watched Magnificent Beast by him 4 years ago maybe. I enjoyed it, but I didn't love it. This one definitely is his best thus far. He has not done many of them, unfortunately, but I love these. And as someone who has now been more familiar with teachers and how school works, I found like in his background of, you know, being a teacher resonate with a lot of environments I might see, and it's just, yeah, it was hilarious. I found them so clever and funny. This is just the kind of comedy that I did like. And yes, there are sexual jokes in it, but it's not too heavy-handed. There are a lot of like episodes that you can tell that he really lived through, and his life sounds quite hilarious, and the way he could retell those episodes to us was so funny. I'm gonna go into TV shows. So TV shows, I've got 4 that I watched the whole season. If I've not watched the whole season, I'm not gonna mention them. So at number 4, I will have to put 1899. Can't tell you exactly what this is about, and I think this is a critique is a comment that a lot of people have made when I was watching it and I started it. People just said, this is not what you think it is. Let's just say that this is it's a historical fiction thriller where you follow these different people that speak different languages and come from different parts of Europe, traveling to America on this boat. One of the main protagonists you follow is a young woman that she is looking for answers to what happened to her brother who's gone missing. And there was a previous vessel, a previous boat that was supposed to reach USA and never did, and the boat disappeared, the people on the boat disappeared, no one knows what happened to the boat, and this vessel, so the boat we are currently following at the beginning of the season, it is from the same company that made the other boat. So why is this in 4th place? I enjoyed the experience of watching it. However, I took like a hiatus of like 3 months, almost 3 months. I just finished these in the last few days because at one point I was not that interested. When things change direction and they become more and more confusing, somehow the mystery wasn't as compelling as I wished. There was something of the pace or something about the characters or the atmosphere that just didn't perfectly work. I would still say that this is a pretty solid one. It is quite compelling, and I understand why a lot of people love it, but the fact that this doesn't have any other season and it was unfortunately cancelled, I think prevents a full exploration of its potential. So things are rushed at certain points, things are very confusing, and we do not get like a proper explanation of what is actually going on, and I think this would have been explored, but again, we're never gonna know. So if you like thrillers, might be worth your time, but it's one that I still think I need to process in my mind because I'm not 100% sold, although I do recognize its qualities. At number 3 we have XO Kitty. I believe it's just one XO, I don't know. This is something that I just watched. I had to iron stuff, and so one episode is just 30 minutes long, and there are like 10 episodes in total, and it's kind of like a sequel series to the 3 movies of All the Boys I've Loved Before, which I had read the book. I had watched the first 2 movies, never got around to watch the third one. I don't care that much. But this one is about, you know, one of the sisters of the protagonist of To All the Boys I've Loved Before, Laura Jean. So this is Kitty. Her younger sister now is grown, and she wants to go to board school in Korea because she has a pen pal, like a boyfriend that she has met many years prior, and now she wants to move there to be physically with him. But when she goes there, things don't go as planned. You can watch the trailer if you want to be spoiled. I won't. And then you just follow her navigating, you know, this new culture, trying to find out more answers about her mother, who went to the same school. Her mother was Korean before she moved to the USA and had the 3 daughters with an American man, and so you just follow her rediscovering part of her roots and navigating her love life. And this was just cute and funny, nothing deep, and I found that the comic relief was like how awkward she is, Kitty. I found it quite relatable and quite lovely to just follow. I really like the character of Minho, and I did like the character of Yuri. However, whatever happens in the end, the shift that we get, I wasn't that sold. I wasn't that on board, and I don't understand why. I don't want to spoil anything, but let's say that in her, some of, you know, romantic issues that are happening, she got interested in someone who already have a love interest, and I really like that couple. There is like this subplot of them, this other couple, trying to really, you know, go through a lot of hardship in order to be together. And I thought that that change of our main protagonist, Kitty, and then mixing and messing things up for the other couple didn't make sense at all. Like, no warnings whatsoever. Like, I didn't like it, so I'm gonna just leave it at that. I just didn't like the turn of events, just because I don't think they made much sense for the story that we were following. But that's just me. Whatever. Will I watch more? Perhaps. I'm not in any rush. I'm not gonna pull my hair out or anything, but it was cute, and it's again tailored for very young adults, so I understand that I might not be the right audience for it, but for what it was a very nice time. And I really enjoyed the ending, like the very final scene. I loved that. Number 2, I put both seasons of Grey's Anatomy, so season 18 and 19. I watched both, so yeah, technically I watched 5 old seasons of things. And Grey's Anatomy is my guilty pleasure in a sense. It's something that I've been following since season 1, and yes, unfortunately all my favorite characters have now left, and I am struggling to love the majority of the new ones. However, they're really growing on me in these seasons. Do I believe that they should eventually wrap it up? Yes, I believe they are almost there. I believe maybe they should have not introduced the new characters and just left things. But the ending of season 19, because some of the characters are oldish, although they're not the original cast of characters, I really grew attached to them, you know, in like 11 seasons with them or whatever it is. And so yeah, that cliffhanger broke me in the end. I will keep watching Grey's Anatomy for how long they're gonna go ahead with it. I don't care. I do recognize what its flaws, but I do also like how they use this TV show to actually discuss current topics, especially in America, I'm imagining, that are relevant to today's society and some of the struggles that Americans and, you know, the American health system is going through. And I really like how that's interwoven in the story and the plot and in the lives of these characters. And number one that initially I was like, well, meh, I don't know, but then really grew on me and stuck in my mind is Yellow Jackets. This has been kind of all over the place lately, has been, you know, exploded, and this is the story of this bunch of girls that are like a national football team, or they're about to become a national football team, and they travel to take part in a competition or receive a prize. I don't remember which one of the two. I believe in a competition, but I believe they're about to compete to, you know, kind of raise the stakes for them and to become a bit more on the professional side. So they are traveling on this plane, and something happens to the plane and they land in the middle of a forest in USA somewhere, I don't know, and they have to survive. And then you follow them back then after the crash and how they survived, and you follow a bunch of them many years later trying to live their everyday lives. However, there is a lot of trauma, there is a lot of unsaid things from how they survived in the forest, so you jump back and forth, and the tension, the way it's done, keeps you on the edge of your seat. I don't want to spoil it, although you might have heard what it's about. We are in the first season, you're not there yet, like it becomes gruesome, but not to that extent, which I've heard it will go eventually. But I love the characters, and I think the way it's structured, jumping back and forth, I honestly generally care for both past and present equally, and yeah, I just want to know. And I'm pissed that this was initially on Now TV and now it's been moved, I believe, to Prime, but you have to have like a Paramount subscription of something, so I don't know how I'm gonna get around to watch season 2, because I wanna watch season 2. I think, you know, things are gonna get more messed up. I never watched Lost, but I've heard that this is like a different kind of Lost, but kind of like Lost in a sense, the premise at least. And yeah, it was so entertaining, so again a compelling watch. So yeah, Yellow Jackets #1 in terms of TV shows I watched this season. Okay, movies, I watched 7 of them, so I'm gonna try to go quite quickly through them. At number 7 I did put Everything Everywhere All at Once. This is a sci-fi where you follow this woman that she is middle-aged, really struggling with her relationship with her daughter, and also she has a laundromat in USA. I think I believe they're originally from China, and they are about to lose the laundromat, and she has a lot of problems with her husband, and her life is just a bit of a mess. And then it explodes into like a mad sci-fi, martial sci-fi movie, and I don't know how I feel about this. I think it's a movie that I will have eventually to rewatch and to appreciate actually what it was all about. I did really like the last hour of it and the final message of it. That is the part I really enjoyed. For the most part, I found it quite so absurd that I would get distracted and I wouldn't care that much. But I really enjoyed the end. So don't take my word for it, because this is a very peculiar one. And I still don't know if I disliked it or overall I found it okay, quite enjoyable. Number 6, this was a rewatch of Fantastic Beasts, and usually I don't include rewatches because I think it's like cheating in a sense. But Fantastic Beasts I had watched previously, like snippets while I was doing something else, so I never really fully paid attention to it. And I really love the creatures. I found like the animals, the creatures in these are so lovely. This is a prequel to Harry Potter. I enjoy this, and I think that again the comic relief in the movie is what I love best. The creatures and the, you know, the side characters, but also him, Newt. I really enjoyed his characters. I think he's very I'm feeling like quite fond of him. I kind of like, I want to protect him, so sweet, and his caring nature really comes through. And so yeah, I really enjoyed this for what it was. And number 5, I put Wakanda Forever. I did finally go around to watch these, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was so entertaining, so well done. It just didn't stick much in my mind. Like, I've got like idea of what it was about. I have idea of a few like fighting scenes, but now that it's been almost 2 months since I watched it, it's not so fresh in my memory as other movies that I have watched even, you know, a year ago, but they're still more fresh. I love Marvel. I love everything that has to do with Marvel, and I really enjoyed the tribute that they do to, you know, the original Black Panther. And that was touching. I was crying. He had all the good emotions and the good amount of action. And what I did remember and I enjoyed is when you explore the enemies and their lore, where they're coming from, their story, that was so well done, so unique and peculiar. So that is the part that stuck with me the most. They created like an enemy that was very, very fascinating, and it was also one of those great enemies where you kind of root for them, you understand where they're coming from, but also, you know, the actions are not justifiable. So yeah, overall, it was a very good one. And number 4 got Beast of No Nation. This is inspired by a book which I've not read, but it's also the story of this child soldier whose family gets separated, partly dies in front of him, and so he has to flee, and he's picked up by this rebellious group that arms him and uses him for their scope, you know, for trying to regain control over this nation. I believe it's inspired loosely by stories from children soldiers, but it's not like inspired by one specific child or one specific child story, I believe. This has one awards. I understand why. It's on Netflix and it features also Idris Elba. The actors were amazing. I think this was just very heavy to watch. However, quality-wise, I do recognize what a masterpiece this was. It's not like about how it's directed precisely or like the scenes. It's a masterpiece in the power that it conveys in telling you about these stories that are absolutely gut-wrenching. Like, it is a movie that made me really need a break from watching anything else. After I watched it, I needed to just sleep it off because I was so upset. It is made to make you upset and to realize how atrocious are the lives of these kids and what war means. And I think it translates very well not only the side of, you know, these kids and, you know, the rebels, but also what it is when they try and conquer a small village or, you know, a city. What happens to the people that are caught in the crossfire. Just be aware, because there are explicit scenes of violence, murder, rape, which were really hard to watch. I really struggle with some of these things, and I would never probably rewatch these just because some of these things are ingrained in my mind. I can't do it. They are extremely triggering for me. I did not know they were inside the movie. I would have probably made a different choice, or I would have just left the room until that was done. But I want you to be aware of that. I do understand the reason behind showing, because again, watching something unfold, it is more powerful than hear it. But it's just the reality of how we work. But it was hard. However, the performances in these were remarkable, and I really loved the message that I wanna see as the message behind all of this is how, you know, if you take a child and you make it less human by forcing him to do atrocious things, how that is gonna reflect in his mind, how it's gonna change him and the consequences. So I really appreciated all the aspects of this movie. It's definitely a movie that will stick with me forever. At number 3, I've got one that quality-wise would be beneath Beast of No Nation. I can't compare the two because, of course, Beast of No Nation is doing something so powerful that number 3 is not doing. It's just entertaining. However, this is more about enjoyment. While number 3, I got Ant-Man and the Quantum Film, and the title is here, okay? I am exhausted today. I've spoken too much. And I really found this entertaining. I really found this Marvel movie and the world we explore in these so new, so funny to explore, but also harsh. And the action and the, you know, this father really trying to protect his daughter and the people he cares about, very touching. And so entertainment wise, this was like 2 hours of pure fun. I was like just exploring this world and all the new creatures we meet. I found it was so creative, and that's why I pump it up, because it was just a really good time. And let me tell you, Ant-Man is one of my favorite superheroes, and this I think is the 3rd in the trilogy, and none of the movies have been bad. Like, I really enjoyed all the movies of Ant-Man. So I think, you know, I don't know if because it's like such a weird superhero to have, they really put a lot of effort in creating like an amazing world and amazing action for him. But it's been so amazing, so creative, like the ideas that they come up with on how you can use this power that doesn't seem like much, but then actually it's so cool. I really like how much effort and what they created with the Ant-Man. Number 2 and 1 are the same enjoyment wise. However, quality wise, I think number 1 is objectively more impactful. So that's why I put them number 2 and 1, but I enjoy them the same. And number 2 is actually a movie that I will watch over and over again, while number 1 I would probably not rewatch it just because it was too harsh. So number 2, I got Bullet Train. And you might not know these, but Quentin Tarantino movies are my favorite movies ever, among a few others. This is not a movie by Quentin Tarantino, but I've never had any movie coming so close to the atmosphere that Quentin Tarantino can create in one of his movies. With this, I mean Quentin Tarantino is able to take like a 3-hour movie that takes place in one household, in one room at times, or like with a very few scenery in it, and make it so entertaining with its dialogues that I can't move my eyes from the screen, and I watch it over and over and over again. And this movie did the same. You basically follow these characters that have all different objectives related to a suitcase that is moving through a bullet train in Japan, and some of them need to get the suitcase to the end, to this kind of like mafia boss that is waiting for it. Some needs to actually stop the case, or some of them needs to stop this from happening, so steal the suitcase, and a bunch of other characters in there. Really, the minimum you know, the more entertained you're gonna be while watching this. This features very famous actors and had the capacity of taking place like 2 hours or something. Only on the train, basically. The train is the only environment you are in. And just with the action, the dialogues, and how the plot is structured, to be brilliant. And I just felt like as soon as it finished, I wanted to watch it again and again and again, because it was so good. Action, sassy dialogues, clever plot. That's what I need from a movie. It's definitely one of the highlights of the year. And at number 1, we have The Covenant. This is the new movie by Guy Ritchie. I could find it on Amazon Prime, so if you have Amazon Prime, I believe you can watch it. And this is not based on a true story, but it's inspired by hundreds of lives of Afghani translators that offered their service to, you know, the American army when they invaded Afghanistan. So they were able to translate for the Americans, and unfortunately when the Americans left, a lot of these Afghani translators were pursued and brutally killed. The trailer really gives the story away, but I don't think that is a bad thing. I think this is something that you go in knowing what it's about, and it would actually be for the best. I'm shivering just thinking back about the story. I loved this movie from the beginning to the end, and I really wished at the end that this was a true story, because then understanding where the inspiration came from and knowing that this was not real really broke my heart. The idea that that could happen, and the idea of what's happening there, I think, you know, again, in Western society, so again, I can only speak of, you know, where I live of, but we really don't speak about these things, and it's definitely not taught in schools, and or not that I know of, and it's definitely not something that is commonly discussed. You know, the war ended in tragedy, like horrible things are happening every day and we just ignore it, and I think this movie does a very good job of bringing us back to that story, to that part of our history, how we failed human beings and the lives of these humans and what's going on currently. So I really hope that this movie inspires people to just keep these people in their mind and this history of that country in their mind alive. And the performances, like, I can't say that this movie has 2 main protagonists and they are both equally good. One is a very famous American actor. Is American? No, it's Finnish, isn't it? But yeah, Jake Gyllenhaal, like, he's been in a lot of movies that I've been loving. He's such a talented actor. But the real surprise was the guy who plays the Afghani translator. He was outstanding, like outstanding acting. Such a powerful message about duty. If you watch the movie and look up the meaning of the word and what it means and how the title was perfect for the story, everything in this movie profoundly touched me, and there was no part of this movie that was dull or not well done. It wasn't also overly done. I think there are some movies like Bullet Train when, you know, you have a crazy plot, crazy characters, and a lot of sassy dialogues, while in here it's very quiet. Like, you don't have many dialogues, you don't have like extremely powerful speeches. It's just, it shows you how powerful human connection can be. And in this case, these perfectly quiet moments were as powerful as some of the best dialogues I've ever heard in some of my favorite movies. So yeah, I can't praise enough The Covenant. I know I love movies by Guy Ritchie, most of them, not all of them, but the majority of movies by Guy Ritchie I'm a big fan of. But The Covenant, in terms of how deep, touching, and remarkably well performed by all the actors in it, definitely has to take the cake. So yeah, on this note, I will say goodbye. Let me know what you watched recently. What was your favorite thing you watched? Any recommendations? I might try to get to some of them during the summer. If you're new, I would love for you to subscribe. Hit the button down below. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you next time. Ciao!